I was working in Kenosha when George Floyd was killed. It's interesting because though that situation was far away from us geographically, it felt horribly close.
The violence I'm addressing is how a man could hold a man down with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes.
It was kind of a watershed moment. We had never seen those numbers of people all around the world turning out for something, and larger numbers of white people turning out for racial justice, and those numbers were really unusual.
For this moment, the whole world told this story as a kind of coming together around the commitment to these common ideals.
Thousands of protesters gathering across the country, including in Washington, D.C. right now. People are marching against police brutality, with some calling for the defunding of police departments.
I'm surprised at my own emotions on TV with you, but I've just, as a white woman, aware of my own privilege in this country, I am so angry.
But then they just set up the incentive for the counter-narrative.
Most of the protests were largely peaceful and multicultural and very diverse. And as long as it was peaceful, they thought nothing was happening, it's boring, there's no need to show it. As soon as something does happen, if someone's throwing a Molotov cocktail or what have you, that's excitement. Or there's a clash with the police, that's excitement. They're going to show that. And in my mind, if MSNBC is doing this, CNN is doing the same thing, right?
Just threw something on fire, Chris, a firecracker. Something's on fire. Shit.
And certainly Fox, if there's something violent, in a protest, they're going to show that to make the protesters look bad.
Now, wait a second, you may be thinking. That didn't look like a political rally. Those people look like looters. They were smashing cash registers with hammers to steal other people's money.
And so this common story then became the feed for this polarizing story.
Our communities, our constitutional rights, and frankly our national soul are all at stake here. Yet, as we've seen time and again, what began as peaceful protesting ended up in a very counterproductive and even criminal place.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security called it 100 days of violence and destruction in cities across America. But one study shows otherwise. Researchers at the University of Connecticut looked at more than 7,000 separate protest events in the spring of 2020. They found the overwhelming majority were peaceful. Only 2% involved reports of injuries, and less than 5% involved property damage. The lead author says the findings show, quote, how politicians and the media want to treat protests isn't always what's happening on the ground.
I knew it was coming the second that I heard about Jacob Blake.
Jacob Blake. He is the 29-year-old black man who was shot multiple times by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin on Sunday. He's now paralyzed.
A Kenosha police officer shoots 7 times, hitting Jacob Blake as he walked away.
The second that those 7 shots went in the back of Jacob Blake, I think the dam broke.
Flashes of smoke and fire, officers in riot gear, protesters at the ready tonight, Wisconsin.
There was absolutely no de-escalation used, and instead they tear gassed a whole bunch of citizens.
Kenosha, a city of about 100,000, has become the latest flashpoint of racial unrest.
The coverage of the protests really fell into the template that media have always used for protests, which typically is media frame it as a clash between order and chaos, right? And the police represent the side of order, trying to bring order to chaos that has been created by protesters.
In recent days, our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, Antifa, and others.
As he spoke, Police were moving demonstrators away from the White House area, where Trump would soon walk over to that church, Bible in hand, tear gas lingering in the air.
Donald Trump really worked hard to drive a wedge between people who see and witness danger and threat at the hands of police and the justice system, and people who just don't. And he kept on saying, they're going to come to your neighborhoods. It's the idea that law and order means I'm going to protect you. He said it in the campaign, by the way. I'm going to protect you suburbs from people coming in and wrecking your neighborhoods. That's the law and order message. And so that's what the problem is, that we don't send the message of the fundamental injustice. We send the message of something that can allow you to get into the fight.
The reports were true. There are militia, and they are patrolling to keep people safe and the local community safe.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a teenager from Antioch, was among the militia that came to Kenosha after a call out to protect local businesses, which led to the night of August 25th.
One person appears to try to grab the weapon before a shot is fired. At least one other person was shot before the shooter fled the scene.
Kyle Rittenhouse is exactly the example of the split that occurred not just in society but in the media.
How shocked are we that 17-year-olds with rifles decided they had to maintain order when no one else would?
Making heroes out of people who are pointing guns at unarmed protesters was reckless and it was wrong.
So Kenosha is known now for two people getting shot down by a boy that people either see as a hero or as the greatest villain of this whole saga.
I think we're beginning to spiral away from each other in this country. I think you're beginning...
Kenosha is not a unique case at all. Not at all. It's America.
Nobody was doing anything. They pulled in, they opened fire. Look at them, they're aiming their fire now. They're working towards us. This was the Saturday night after the Monday in which George Floyd was killed, and the demonstrations really hit a fever pitch. All right, they're now moving toward us. They're now moving toward us. There was... Yeah, they're shooting, guys. Put your helmets on. And suddenly, at the intersection in front of me, police pulled in, supported by the National Guard, and they started shooting in both directions. Step back, get back, get back, get back. You're ahead, he's ahead. Step back. Suddenly, I felt what seemed to be a hockey stick, a hockey puck hit me. All right, guys, I got hit. Yeah, I got hit. Hold on. My team and I put our hands up and said, we're media. And they said, we don't care, and they shot again. Let's go. Donald Trump subsequently referred to that as a beautiful thing.
I remember this guy Welchie, he got hit on the knee with a canister of tear gas, and he went down. He was down. My knee.
Depending on what rally he was at, because this became common fodder for him, he would say it was a beautiful thing or a beautiful sight.
I'm a reporter. Get out of here. They threw him aside like he was a little bag of popcorn.
He actually said it was law and order and suggested to his people that the attacks on journalists are valid.
I mean, honestly, when you watch the crap that we've all had to take so long, when you see that, it's actually, you don't want to do that, but when you see it, it's actually a beautiful sight. It's a beautiful sight.
It became clear that what we'd done is we had swapped out the Walter Cronkite gatekeepers, not for no gatekeepers, right, but for a new set of gatekeepers. And the new set of gatekeepers is typically the social media companies. Those are the people who are determining what gets highlighted, what gets amplified, what gets buried, what gets taken down, what gets a notice put against it, etc., right?
And they can measure how you respond and how often you engage and re-engage. And the best way to get people to engage constantly is to inflame their emotions. We're all feeling paranoid and all feeling angry, and no one's actually talking to each other face to face. And COVID has just made this worse.
If you support Robert E. Lee, you hate this country. He literally attacked us.